Welcome everybody to this new episode of PartnerTalk. Today we are here directly from Houston, AVEVA Enable Americas 2025, and it's my pleasure to receive ENTRUST, our endorsed system integrator. I have Lance and Mike here with me today, and we're going to be talking a bit about ENTRUST, what you guys do, a little bit about AVEVA Enable, maybe some success stories, the partnership with AVEVA. Okay, thank you so much for taking the time. Maybe starting with you, Lance, you mind maybe give an introduction to our viewers about ENTRUST, what you guys do, maybe key industries that you guys focus on?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm Lance Irvin, a director in automation group of ENTRUST Solutions Group. ENTRUST Solutions Group's a large engineering company, but we have a fairly large systems integration division, or the automation group. We work primarily in oil and gas, like 75%. We also do some transportation, pet food manufacturing, probably a couple other things. I'm primarily in the gas space, so gas transmission, and then pipelines.
Very interesting. Mike, anything to add?
I think Lance said it perfectly. To add, we do a little bit of chemical, glass, and a couple other things, but like you said, the vast majority of what we do is oil and gas and some manufacturing.
Okay, and where you guys are based here in the U.S.?
Okay, so
I think we have a large presence in Kansas City, as well as Houston, Denver, and some in Chicago. We have engineers kind of spread all over the country in remote ways, but those are our main hubs.
Perfect. Okay, can you maybe talk a bit about the AVEVA partnership? So again, how long you guys been a partner with AVEVA? What are the main benefits that you guys see on that journey?
Long time, right? It's, as far as I'm aware, we've been using. I remember System Platform going in at one of our primary clients in 2007.
Okay,
something like that. So very early adopters on the cutting edge, and I think it's fair to say that we've been an AVEVA house since. It was our strength. Most of our engineers know how to use AVEVA, and that is their primary platform.
Appreciate that. Perfect. Okay. Maybe can you guys maybe share maybe a success story, an interesting project that you guys maybe are very proud of, or maybe something new, something more modern with our viewers here?
Yeah, I've got one actually. Okay. It's one that it's close to my heart because it was a project that I worked on myself. It's an oil and gas cooperative in the Midwest, Texas, Indiana, Illinois, and I think it's easy. Sometimes the very large projects are exciting just because they're so big. But the smaller ones are more impactful, I think. And so in this particular project, we had a client that had a very outdated system. They have a refinery, but they also have a crude pipeline. They also have some refined products lines. And they were putting in a new crude line to get a new source of crude. And we went out and looked at the system, and very old hardware, relays, wires hanging everywhere. And for their HMI, it was, I believe it was from the 80s. And barely usable. There was errors in it. They couldn't do anything with it. And so we came in and we said, you guys need AVEVA. And we started by giving them a demo. Here's what you can have. And their minds were just blown. Luckily, they had a vice president that started that was very tech forward. One of his goals was to bring them forward with, HMIs, SCADA, and that telemetry. So we had a partner that was interested in bringing them forward, and we had an environment that was ripe. So we went in with AVEVA and we installed new hardware. That was easy, and put in System Platform, and it was just a transformation for them. They made a control room that they didn't have before. They had truck drivers out gauging tanks by hand and bringing them back and typing things in. Now that whole system is automated, and it's all AVEVA. We actually recently got AVEVA leak detection involved. Okay. There's an entire family of AVEVA products now there, and they're super happy, and we are expanding that into their other lines. So it was a transformation for them to go from barely operating to now they are an efficient pipeline company, and they can run reports. They can see their data. They can start to analyze and do things with that data that before was just a mystery to them.
Trying to just operate.
Yeah, before they just spreadsheets and paper. and now they are making decisions based on data that they have,
Right.
and that was huge for them, I think.
Very interesting. True digital transformation.
True digital
from the 80s
transformation.
to 2010.
Yep,
Perfect.
it was amazing.
Okay, Lance, any other maybe a project that you want to share, or maybe just experience?
Yeah, a little bit similar, but project maybe larger scale, but it was slightly different application. System Platform again. We had another pipeline transmission company that had just a whole bunch of different assets they'd acquired over time, and so they were really looking for trying to just get. I mean, the one side of this whole system had different colors for open valves or versus closed valves, or pumps running versus not running. So they were really just trying to get everything into one color scheme and then be able to manage one code base. And so System Platform allowed them to have, a Galaxy repository with all of that managed code base and then deployed applications to like 100 different stations and get everything at least to the same color scheme and standards, so they could start working to get better data and actually just operator training as well.
I love that one. So small steps towards that. Because I think again, we are here at AVEVA Enable, a technical conference. The AI is the word of the moment, right? Everybody's talking about that, but it goes a lot around. I think we talked a little bit about that yesterday. How do you organize your data? How do you organize your structure, right? And you have to start taking these steps, baby steps, in order to get there, right? So sometimes even something that might be appears something simple and basic, it takes a huge step to, especially on large implementations like this one. So
we've had that conversation a couple times with clients where they see like UOC or they see something, they're like, we want to do all of this. And it's like, well, there's some steps in there. You can get there, but you need to get your drawings in a place that it can't be integrated with that. You need your data sets to be, unified and have
like
same namespace.
Standards first.
Yeah, exactly.
It's definitely a journey. It's a journey, and I think that's where we at AVEVA, we truly believe you guys play a key strategic role, right? Because we truly see AVEVA as the one. Our goal is to continue developing solutions, offers to the industrial market, but then we need companies like ENTRUST that really has this expertise and can take these customers, like you're saying, Mike, through this journey, right? Explain to them the value of this, help them with best practice, all that in order to be successful using our products. So great. Okay, maybe talk a bit about AVEVA Enable. Maybe you want to share with our viewers why you guys are coming, what are the main values that you guys are seeing of coming to this event. Is it first year maybe coming to AVEVA Enable?
For me, yes. Lance was here before.
I was in Denver last year. Yep.
I got lucky this time. I got to come. I think selfishly, I like coming myself just for the networking and meeting all of the AVEVA experts, right? Meeting Natalie and everyone else as well. And that's kind of my goal in the networking. But I think we all come here for the same thing, and that is to get information on what the latest AVEVA products are and what's coming in the future, so that we can take that back to our clients and help them get to that path. And that's what we're all here for, right?
Perfect.
Yeah, I think roadmap is a huge part of it. I also, we get clients all the time that are they want AVEVA to actually do it. They want AVEVA to have services because they want it done the way that AVEVA would say to do it with their products. And I really appreciate as an endorsed SI where we have access to the AVEVA folks, the solutions architects, the product managers, and be able to go back to a client and say, well, AVEVA's probably not going to do this. They don't do services in that way, but we are basically AVEVA, and that way we can work with you and work with them to connect everything, make sure it's done with best practices in mind, the way the software was designed. So.
Absolutely, great point. Yeah, for us, it's really important to continue to support you guys, but also hear from you guys, right? At the end of the day, you guys are the ones facing the customers, going to the Middle West, talking to the customers, explaining their pain points, explaining the trends on the industries, and bringing all this feedback back to us. It's highly valuable for us as well. Okay, again, maybe staying still on the technical side. I just mentioned a couple of minutes ago, AI is a big topic, big buzzword nowadays. I think historically on the industry was always a little bit more slow-moving to adopt new technologies. We saw that in many different transformations that happened. How are you guys feeling around that, around AI? Do you guys think that's going to change a little bit? It's going to be a little bit more, we are embracing this a little bit more open this time, or do you still feel it's going to be a slow-moving transition?
I think AI is different. I tell our customers, if giving them advice, this is not something to dismiss. This is not a trend. This is technology evolving in front of you. And I think the biggest driver for this that's going to help the industrial market is that they're seeing it in their daily lives. So I had a conversation with a client, that was asking about AI in the industrial, and I said, pull out your phone, ask your phone this question, and you get this AI answer, and they're like, yeah, this is great. Yeah. I said, this is where this is going, even for the industrial market. And I gave them the example, a theoretical example, but it's coming to fruition now. Think of the times that you've called us and said, hey, we had this failure, we had this problem, and can you dive in and figure out what happened here? And we get in there, we start analyzing trends and looking at things and trying to figure that out over days. And while humans are good at recognizing patterns, we're imperfect. Yeah. We have bias and we're not that good at it. AI is the answer to that. Before we knew what questions to ask, but now we have something that's giving us an answer that we didn't have before. And so just speeding that up, I think they are going to see that value when it comes, for sure.
Yeah, I agree completely. I think especially we talked about trying to get, unified data sets and namespaces and everything. A valve is a valve, whether it was in the drawings to the operations control to the analytics that have done later. All of that just existing data and trying to make sure it's all linked correctly. I think that's going to be one of those places where it's taken so much work to do that manually, but AI is going to help, and you're going to have people checking that, but it's still going to help link everything together when tag names weren't consistent.
Yeah, it's going to bring huge opportunities for us. Because, like I said, there's plenty of data out there, but there's a lot to be done to standardize. And again, AI at the end of the day is the quality of your data. So I think there will be plenty of opportunities for us to help our customers succeed on their journey. Okay, maybe start to wrap up here. Again, after or being here at AVEVA Enable, what are maybe some of the key things you're hearing, maybe from our people from AVEVA, or maybe by connecting with the partners? So maybe what's the key takeaway that maybe you guys will be taking back to your customers to talk with them, talk about what you learned this week?
I think the advancement in technology that you guys are showing us is it's our job to bring that to our clients, right? So you guys make the tools, and then we know our clients, we know the path to get them there. So it's our job to take those things to them and show them that vision and how it can end up that way. And then it's our job to come back to you and give you the feedback from that so that you can make the next tools. So that's the major takeaway for me is we're going to suck it out of all of you experts and product managers, take it to them and massage it into what they can understand, and then move them forward.
Yeah, so we've done a lot of HMI SCADA system platform in Touch Edge, and our clients they're very on-premise based. And so I think one of the things that we learn here and we think about as we're watching presentations and talking to the AVEVA experts is there's a lot of advantages moved to hybrid cloud. And I think we just keep looking for the right applications. It may not be directly on the operation control side. It may be we can get their data replicated out somewhere and then let it, use Connect for analytics or some display, and then kind of keep pushing back into, you guys could be doing a little more in the cloud or a little bit more hybrid. So
yeah, I think the lines will start to fuzz more and more as the technology evolves, as the customer evolves. I think all this HMI, SCADA, they're all going to fuzz because at the end of the day, it's all going to come down to data, right? And that's where I think we can help with Connect, and that's our main goal here, to really help you guys expand your coverage, help your customers expand their operations, optimize their operations, and so on. Okay, maybe last one to wrap up here. If you had to describe AVEVA Enable in one single word for maybe customers or partners that are listening to us here, what that word would be?
I guess innovation is what I would say. That's what I see when I come here. I see moving the industry forward into the next time period, right?
I think let's see if you can beat that one.
I don't think I can. Maybe mine's too obvious, but for me, it is still networking. That's us and AVEVA, us and other integrators, and having those connections to be able to go back to our clients with. So.
Awesome. Okay, I'll call that a tie. That's a pretty good one as well. Okay.
I love that one.
Yeah. Thank you so much for coming. Mike, thank you so much for coming. Thank you all for watching this episode of Partner Talk.